All right, what's up everybody? So, been a little while since I've been putting some GZ content specifically together, but I think this is a super important video that I think a lot of people will find very useful. A lot of people that get on the site or contact us about lures, some of them are just kind of getting into it. Some of them are fantastic fishermen, fished all around the world, been doing it a really long time, but don't really often put hooks in lures. I'd say there's a vast majority of the fishermen out there pull lures as teasers and pitch off them. So when you're in a scenario like that, they may not be like super versed in the intricacy of lures like we would maybe in somewhere like Kona, where every single day all we're doing is pulling lures, right? And we have calm water, so we're able to really fine tune how each lure runs. I'll tell you, like, from what I know from fishing in the rough, it is really hard to see what your lures are doing. And if that's how you grew up fishing and you're like always in the rough, it's definitely going to be difficult to understand the little differences between just a small variation in a head shape. So anyways, we get a lot of like questions about, hey, what can you design a spread for me, or what should I be pulling here, or I fish in the mid-Atlantic, I fish here, or I fish in Cabo, I fish in this area. What sort of lure spreads do you recommend? Now, the reason why there's a lot of people out there you can go online, you can buy lures from all over, right? You can buy tackle lures from all kinds of companies. The reason why I think that you should be getting your stuff from GZ Tackle Co. is we're dedicated to kind of sit there and show you each and every little thing and what's going to work for you and work with you on that. We're not going to just say, oh yeah, take this, take this, take this. It's going to be set up in a way that's going to benefit you. We want the customers, we want you guys catch more fish. End of the day, I'm a fisherman, I'm a captain, I'm part of this business. My name's involved in this. I have a lot of respect in showing people that we care that you guys catch fish. And we are, in a way, responsible for that. So, anyhow, with that being said, right, we have a lot of knowledge of how different lures run, what you're gonna wanna do here and there in different situations, and always open to answer questions about it. But I thought this video could be kind of a good one of just kind of going over a basis of like different types of head shakes, what the differences make in a lure, right? Like someone could hand me a lure, I could pick it up and look at it, hold it in my hand, put it in my shirt, roll it a little bit, feel it. I have a pretty fair idea of how this thing's gonna run. And almost to the extent where I could look at it and say, this is gonna probably pull to this side. And it just takes a lot of time of doing it. And like I said, in really calm water. And so, like there's fantastic fishermen out there who just like, they've caught them, they've done it, they're tournament winners, all this stuff, but they haven't fully had the time to go into that lure stuff because it's just, let's just get some teasers out that are gonna work and let's pitch to some fish, right? So the basis of this video is to kind of try and help narrow down some things and just show you a little bit of basic knowledge so you could just look at a lure or look on the website and like read some of the things we say, like, hey, taper, double taper, this and that, and like, what does that exactly mean? How is that gonna produce action? What is that gonna do, right? All the different things. And then on top of that, this will also give you a basis of how you can kind of think of how you want to create your own spread in terms of what you want to buy, in terms of like, oh, okay, is this a rough water? Is this a calm water? Or is this a medium water? Is this big fish, small fish, Mahi, whatever, right? So I'm going to try and cover that. I just grabbed a few out of the bucket here of my rigging area of just a few different types of shapes. I got a lot more on the boat and stuff. Obviously, lure addiction is a real thing. So I have way too many of these things, but I've just kind of grabbed a few. No particular reason I grabbed these, other than the fact that they're just demonstrating different shapes. And then off of these, there's like variations, right? So you have like your basic shapes, and then there's variations, right? So, but we'll kind of go over all of that, and I'll try and keep it somewhat short so we don't take up all your time here. But all right, let's get into it. All right, so let's just go over kind of the basics of the shapes out there, right? So here's this is a Mulcraft, right? But it's a cup face lure, so cup. And now there's 100 variations to this. The basic variation is a cup. It's a scoop. I wouldn't call it a scoop. It's an invert or a cup, whatever you want to call that in that way. But basically, that's what that is. Now, this is, in terms of like a versatile lure, This and the flat face lure are gonna be like your most versatile lures. I would say that this and then a flat face, like a Mocraft wide range, just like this skirt's cut off because this was being used for something different. But the head, you know, a flat face type thing like that, they're gonna be your most versatile lure. They're gonna be probably the lures that you're gonna see when you jump on just about every single boat. You're gonna at least see one of these somewhere laying somewhere in the boat or whatever. Great teasers. The thing about the scoop lure is, and this was where a lot of the success came with like the Pakula lures and things like that, was the fact that you don't really need to know where you want to put this thing. You could just put this out, close your eyes, wait till you think it's far enough back, put it in gear, walk away. It doesn't need to be positioned. I mean, it's obviously going to run better when you got it positioned on the right part of the wave, especially if it's calm, because you're going to lose a little bit of action. But you know, this is a lure that's going to handle the rough extremely well. It's going to handle any position, any length, any angle of line. You may get a little weirdness out of it if it's really, really close to the boat, like a teaser, and it's being in the line angles being pulled up really, really high in a rigger, like a big rigger. You might not get the full, you might get a little skipping out of it, you know. But mainly what you're going to do, I mean, when you think about it, I mean, it's just common sense. When you think about water's hitting this, it's going to make this thing move erratically. So you see these things when they're in the water, and they're moving, and they're digging, and they'll pop, and they'll come down and dig, and they'll pop, push water, come down, dig. This is like a really easy lure to run if you're fishing in medium, so you know, conditions, rough conditions, medium conditions, whatever, and you're new to it. Inverted cup style lures, get one in the spread. Generally, myself, I would probably run this as like a short rigger, long corner. It depends on the scenarios. I'd even go as bold as putting this thing on like a stinger with a high angle that's back there, or like a rat trap or something too. But yeah, for me and the places I you know, where I'm fishing in terms of like looking for a bigger fish, this is kind of a smaller, or you know, medium-sized lure, but I wouldn't really run it on the corner. You might, you know, run it on the long corner, but like I said, it's going to run in any position. If you're designing a spread, I would say the best position for this would be short rigger or long corner. And then since we're kind of basing off of that, let's go off what like the flatheads are. They're also called hardheads, flatheads. This is a Mocraft wide range. All different types of names. Basically, it's just a flat face. A lot of them will have a taper. So what a taper is basically, some of these will just be run completely straight, and some will have a taper where you kind of have like a bowl. It'll kind of taper. Okay, and that's just going to allow a little bit more movement to it and a little bit more plunge as well. These are going to do similar to what the cup face is. They're going to run very straight, very predictable, steady eddy, pop, go straight through, pop, go straight through. Now this lure will run on any position. Again, I wouldn't really run this on the corner. I'd probably run this short rigger, long rigger, and maybe stinger. We did really well on it in the stinger at 1.2. And yeah, so in creating a spread, you know, for these flat type of head lures, you know, a lot of guys, almost every lure maker makes one. They all have a different kind of name, but it's just a flat head. Basically, if you took your hand and you went like that, it's just going to be flat on it. And so that's going to be, yeah, like I said, short rigger, long rigger, possibly a stinger. And then moving on to, I'm going to work our way from, let's see, here we go. We're going to talk about plungers. Now, I've heard a lot of people talking about lures and they just call them all plungers, or they just say, you know, they don't understand, or they may just not understand that every single lure is designed differently. Just because it's got a curved, angled face doesn't mean that that's just a specific type and they're all going to run like that. Very little bit differences in these will make a huge difference in how they run. So this is a Tanigawa, this is a plunger. And as you can see, pull it up here. You'll notice, so it's got the angle. Now it's got a longer bit of a head, right? It's got almost like a tubed out section, so it's got a longer head. It's got a cut angle, not a super steep like hard cut angle, but a decent size. And then you have, as you come across here, it tapers down. Right there, you see that taper down? And then it comes up, and then there's like one little extra taper. That's just how he does it. But all plungers will have a basic kind of a taper down. Might be evenly on both of them, it might be just on the top part of the lure, but it's going to have that. And basically what that is going to have happen is It's gonna pop, it's gonna come out, it's gonna throw water. A lot of times these will run, because they're longer, they'll almost have like a tube style action where tubes will have almost like that snow plowing skittering where it'll just and then kind of catch and go down. Well, the tube wouldn't catch and go down. Tubes will usually just keep kind of doing that. Skitter, molehill, push water. And so you'll get this, the plungers will do a little bit of that, then they'll catch with the taper and they'll go down and they'll plunge. How the name goes, right? So plunge and they'll go down, they'll have a pretty good undulating, like calming swimming action to him. You'll see like the white water kind of, and then they'll come up, pop, maybe just do one pop, come down, and they'll come up, maybe skitter, come down, pop, come down. And now one thing to know, like with a good plunger, sometimes you can time their pop and it's like pretty damn close. So if you count like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, 6 pop. Okay, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and it'd be pretty consistent, about 6 seconds or something like that. Again, every lure maker's got their own. This is another versatile lure in terms of conditions. You're gonna be able to run this in pretty much medium chop, calm water, great calm water lure, great medium chop lure. Will handle most weather. If it gets super rough, you're fishing like mid-Atlantic or some places in Australia and stuff, plungers will struggle a little bit in that. Nick's plunger, that tantrum plunger, it's a pretty good one for super rough. That one can kind of steady eddy it out in there. But for the most part, the plungers are going to start getting put away in the lure shelf when you start getting nautical out there, where that's when these types of flatheads and cupped head lures are going to really excel. So that's that position again. I would probably say long corner, short rigger. Yeah, long corner, short rigger. If you're fishing for really small fish, you could pull this on, not really small fish, but just medium-sized blues and stuff like that, and stripes and things. You can run this on a short corner too. I do like to have see, here's the thing about angle. This is another thing. The closer you're pulling these lures to the boat and you're pulling them through the rigger, the more angle you're gonna have where the leader comes out of the head and comes up to the pulling point. So the closer you get to that outrigger that's up here, the more that leader is being pulled out of the water and the more that head is being pulled more towards the surface, okay? The farther back, now you have more of a leash that's sitting in the water. It stabilizes it a little bit more and allows it to drop down. So for me, like a plunger and like a diving type lure, I want a little bit farther back because I want it to be able to use that leash in the water to kind of keep it to go down and do its action. I don't want to kill its action. When you start pulling them really close to the boat and you're starting to pull and leash them up like this, you're going to get more of just a surface type action, and you're going to kill a little bit of the diving, which is good in some faces. They love that position, and some not. So when we talk about positioning lures at different parts of the spreads, there's many different reasons we do that. Not only do we're talking about the pull angle, which I just stated, but also their action in terms of where the wave is going to be, size, how the fish act. Sometimes the fish are a lot more aggressive close to the boat, and then they kind of lose aggression as they fall farther back, which is kind of why you want to complement that action with like kind of creating your spread being, the traditional method is having very aggressive stuff up close and then sort of working your way back to easier meals for them as it falls farther back. So yeah, that kind of gives you an idea a bit on the angle pull and why we say, hey, pull it close, pull it far, whatever. So yeah, this is your old plunger right there. Moving on, we'll talk about a scoop lure. This is a violator, super famous lure. One of my favorite shapes, that scoop style. Almost every lure maker makes them. Most of them do. It's a very hard lure to make because if you make the wrong, if you don't do it correctly, this lure will wander or it'll spin, it'll do weird things. Having a scoop lure to run right can be difficult. Some of them have an angle like that, some of them are just flat with a scoop. And basically what you're gonna get out of the scoop lure is similar to the cup face, you're gonna get that side to side really good wiggle, but what you'll notice with the scoop lure is it'll have a life of its own. It's gonna be the most, in my opinion, like realistically unpredictable type of what a fish would be like. So it's gonna be doing this and it might come over here, and then it might wander over here, it might wander here, and it might wander, it's gonna move around a little bit. Some of them wander more than others, some of them favor certain things, some of them plow more than others, right? But the majority of the movement with a scoop is going to be that very kind of aggressive kind of moving around. Now, this is the thing about the scoop lures. Because of that action, This is probably something I should have talked about too, is with the other lures, is their actions are going to produce different bites. Now if you've ever owned a scoop lure, you know, or your friends that pull them, you'll notice they'll probably all say, oh, we get slammed on that thing, but we just don't catch too many on them. And the reasoning behind it is that it makes a great teaser, but when you put a hook in it, the way that the fish eat these is usually pretty aggressive, and as they commit to, so it's doing its thing, and as they commit to come eat, if it does something weird, they're off now. That split second before they eat and it does something a little bit weird, they're a little bit off on how they're biting it. The other thing too is when they see it acting super aggressive like this, okay, it's not an easy meal for them. So that's kind of, generally they don't eat it the best way, where they just kind of come up and say, okay, I'm just gonna eat this thing, it's a done deal. And so a lot of times you'll get, the bill will come, they'll come up and hammer it super, the bites are usually pretty aggressive. And you know, the leader will be around the bill, a lot of times the hook will be on the bill. A lot of times with these types of lures is a situation where you'll be fighting a fish for a while and all of a sudden the hook will pull off because it's kind of been in a weird place, and that bow, as it was jumping and pulling line and swimming around, was keeping it tight. But once you change angles, that loop comes off its bill or the hook rolls off. But it's a tremendous bite raiser. Now, there's different thoughts to that in terms of like, okay, then do I put a hook in it? Well, here's the thing. If you run it as a teaser with a hook in it, then you have a chance of maybe hooking one when they come up and tease. But now here's the other thing. If you're losing them a lot on it, what if you raise that one you really want and he eats it and you hook him and then you pull a hook on it because it just never was good and that was the one? Whereas if you didn't have a hook in it and you got it away from him, you could get him to eat something more stable. So for me, with these scoop type lures, I like pulling them as teasers. I think they're freaking phenomenal teasers. That being said, I did catch my grander with a scoop face lure. I've caught a lot of really big fish with them. And you know, there's just days where that's all they want to eat, I'm telling you, for whatever reason. And here's, you know, a little secret with the scoop face lures. If you want to kind of, what you can do with them is run that, when I talk about the angle, run the angle really high up in the rigger. So even if it's, I'd run this short corner, long corner, or long corner. I'd run this on a corner. The farther this goes back, you're gonna notice it'll start to get lazy. Like if you ran this on the long rigger, it's gonna disappear. When I say lazy, I mean it's gonna lose its bubble trail, it's gonna lose its action. You do not want your lures to lose their bubble trail. When they pop, keep them going. You know, you want it to pop, do its action, you know, not lose its bubble trail, come up, pop, do its action. If it's doing its stuff, popping, and it comes down, does its thing, and then the action fizzles off, your lure's getting lazy. So, anyhow, what I'll do is run this on a short corner or long corner, and I'll pull that angle up real high in the rigger, as high as I can, because again, this is another lure, because of the scoop size, it can handle rough water, so you're not going to be completely skipping it all the time. And then if I get a fish that comes up on it and he's not acting real hungry, or it's acting a little funny, you can drop it down in the rigger or pop it out of the clip, and now all of a sudden, now this thing's come to life, and now you're gonna get an insane bite. Or what happens a lot of times too is it's up there in the clip and she'll come up, this happens about 90% when I have a hook in one of these, and they smash it and it pops out of the clip, comes out of the clip like boom, train crash, just comes out of the clip. Now it's flatlined and the fish is still there. Now it's doing this stuff, and you give it a few cranks and it does its thing. You give it a couple more cranks, that fish gets fired up and it piles on, and you know, usually you'll hook them. But again, be wary with the scoop lures in terms of hookup rates. I like single hooks on them. Once you start adding double hooks and things like that to the scoops, it changes their action. Yeah, I mean, like I said, yeah, I would run as a teaser, but if not, run it short corner or long corner, single hook rig, and watch out, these get hammered. But yeah, and you know, like I said too, this is something that can handle decently rough water too. So if you're kind of designing a rough water pack, I would almost say like this would be your short corner, maybe this cup face lure would be your long corner, and then maybe like the mole craft would be your short rigger, and then a bullet on the long rigger and a bullet on the stinger. And that's a pretty damn good spread. But yeah, that's those are a few things about the scoop. Moving on, let's talk about a very famous lure, the smash bait. Aloha lure is probably top 3 favorite lures of mine and probably most people that marlin fish. Great teaser, great hook bait. very good hookup percentage. And what you'll notice with this is it's pretty much straight. It's got a minor taper right here, but for the most part it's a tube. And that's how tubes were created, was they were, you know, cut off a rod and it got cut off on a certain angle. And it's a simple shape, but it does an amazing amount of action. Now, there are heaps of variation to the tube lure, okay? Smash bait runs a little different than most tube lures. I'll say, you know, it's definitely super aggressive, it'll skitter, it'll do its thing, but it's a little more stable than most tube lures. And, you know, I really like it like that. It's not so much of just a consistent just molehilling all the time, but it will molehill and then it might get down in the water a little bit and move and then pop. And fantastic lure. The smash bait can handle medium conditions. It's not going to handle the rough. It can, but you're going to have to put it way back there. And it's not really the most recommended lure for the rough. But in terms of tube lures, I would say Eric's is one of the best for the rough water. And I would say, you know, probably Nick's and Scott Crampton's are, the Crampton lures are also pretty good for the rough too. But it's not really a lure you're going to perfect in the rough water. Once it starts jumping out and skipping and doing this type of stuff, take it out of the spread and switch your spread up. But you can try and start it in the morning on these in the rough. But in the calm and in the medium, this is a good one. This is a short corner, long corner lure for me. In Kona, I actually run it on my short rigger. This is like a staple short rigger lure for me recently. And it runs really good there. Generally, it does like that long corner side. A lot of people like running it on the long corner. I would say if it had one particular position that I would say, geez, this is the one that it really is going to excel in, I would say long corner. And yeah, so the tube lures, they're going to push water. They're going to stay more on the surface. You're going to get surface action bites, great around bait schools, great around, you know, it's a blue marlin lure. It's loud, pushy, aggressive thing. And then, you know, when we talk about molehilling, what we're talking about is basically it's pushing a bowl of water in front of its head. So there's a bowl constantly, like, and what you'll see a lot of tube lures will do is that molehill will sit there and then it'll expand. And it'll like, and it'll keep pushing that molehill and then it'll splash. And it'll skitter a little, but it stays very much on there. Like I said, the smash bait will go down a little bit more than most tubes, but that's what you're gonna see. Here's a Crampton just to show you the variations. This is like a smaller tube, and you'll notice the Crampton has, Scott came up with this. He invented this this idea, or from what I know, that's what he is, where the edges are a little beveled more. You see how it's not sharp on the edge there? And now this makes a difference, definitely in terms of the rougher water. Now this is more of like, I think this one's like what they call a quarter tonner, so it's like a chopped tube, but it's still a tube type lure, and this is, you know, going to be a molehiller, great lure. Tubes are definitely what you want to add to your spread, but be aware of how you want them to run. Like I said, you want that. This is water coming up like this, a bulb of water pushing in front of it, and pushing out every once in a while, and then pushing through and pushing out. And should run fairly straight, so you should get good hookups on that. Now, we start talking about, you know, then there's bullets and stuff, right? This is a really big bullet. This is a Ninja, this is a XL or whatever, Deep 6, you know. And the bullets, they all have a little bit of action. They all have a lot of different tapers to them and things, and that's just something you're gonna have to experiment with and see. This is, bullets are gonna run in all weather. That's gonna be a definitely all weather lure. Long rigger or stinger, you wanna put a bullet out there. And you know, I say this over and over and over again, bullets are not just for Mahi and Tunas. Bullets catch a lot of marlin, and even small ones. And there are so many types of different bullets. It would take me 5 hours to go into the discussion on that, but there are some other videos I've done about how bullets should run. Basically, we call it like a blackwater ripple. They shouldn't be like splashing, but you should see a little bit of dish rag and push water, and you know, kind of look like a bait trying to get away, like a goggle eye on a kite. If you ever flown kites and you have baits and that bait's just kind of rippling the water, that's kind of what it should look a little bit like. Hard water, I mean rough water, it's hard to see that. But if you get up high enough on the boat, you can view it and see what it's doing. But it's okay if you don't see the bullet. That's fine. Again, you know, that's a lure that It does matter where you're positioning it on the wave, but you could get away with making a mistake and not positioning it in the right place. But again, you want to try and run all these lures pretty much on the faces of the wakes, towards the top or towards the middle part, depending on what the conditions are doing, and adjust. If they're not running right, try and adjust it, move it around a little bit. So anyways, that's kind of a basis of different types, right? And then you have all kinds of variations and like different taperings and different things that allow them to move around. So here's a lure that's, you know, it's got a cut face, but now you notice it's got a pretty drastic kind of tapers here, okay, and almost like a fat side, right? And Annie Moyes makes a lure called a sumo that's kind of similar to that. Marlin Magic make one as well, you know, basically this is going to give you a real the splash and then like a real side-to-side action too. The taperings and things like that are, when you think about it, when the water's hitting it, it's creating drag on that, so it's going to make it do different things. So you're going to have a lot of action out of it, a lot of side-to-side and a lot of splashing out of how drastic, how cut the face is. I've done really well on these types. Done really well on that Moya Sumo as a teaser. Got a lot of movement, and because of that taper, they'll handle the rough a little bit better too. You'll notice when you start adding tapers to things, and you start adding, remember we were talking about the plunger, and you see how this kind of comes down? They'll add a little bit more plunge of it into it, right? So like here, for instance, is a Super Dog by Marlin Magic, right? So now, what you would call this, it'd be hard to say, oh, that's just a plunger, or oh, that's just a tube, or oh, that's just a whatever. This is a Super Dog. It's kind of its own shape, you know. It's got aspects of a plunger. It's got definitely a downward plunge to it. It's got a pretty aggressive face, decent size here on the face. It's got a little bit of bevel on the side. It's got a little bit of, you know, thickness on the sides. And this is a lure that can handle a little bit of rough too because of that plunge. This is also a lure, you know, that's aggressive. It's loud. It's going to push some water. It's going to drag some water along with it. So, you know, when you're picking up these lures and you look at them, you can kind of see the little differences in them, and you'll kind of be able to tell, okay, it's got a big fat sides, so that's probably going to catch water and make it wiggle. Okay, it's this. And another thing to look at too with the lures is the face. A lot of times if you look at it, it's hard to do on camera, you're just not going to see it, but they'll sometimes be bent to one side or another. So it'll be favoring one side or the other, and that's going to make a little bit of difference on where it's going to pull and how it's going to act and what it's going to kind of do. And you know, these are things we can help you with, but you know, I just want to kind of give you the basis of what we're talking about when it comes to the different lures and different shapes, and you know how the different bevels will help. You know, this is Super Dog lure. I would run this on the short corner or even on the long corner. But you know, there's a lot of different lures out there. There's a lot of different styles of different lures out there. But those are kind of the bases that you can go off of and kind of get an idea of. You know, you're gonna want to match your spread to what conditions are, what the fish feed on, how the fish feed, and what style of fishing you're gonna do. And that's gonna kind of help you determine what you're gonna pull, where you're gonna pull it, how you're gonna pull it, right? If you're just teaser fishing, you're gonna want to pull some of the most aggressive stuff we got here, and you're going to want it to have a lot of movement because you're going to want to piss that fish off. You're going to want to get his attention, and you want to get it away from him so he can't really get a hold of it too good. If you're pulling lures, you're going to want a little bit mix of everything. You're going to want an aggressive up close, you're going to want to taper him out the back, then you're going to want to pull it down the middle, an easy meal. So you're going to kind of want to create variations. You want to create differences in the spread, and you know, that's all going to be dependent on, like I said, the weather, what they're eating. You know, if they're eating little flying fish, put out more bullets. You know, if they're eating little things, you know, tiny bait up on shoals and things, like try and change things up. But I always have gone with the thing that one big lure in your spread will not hurt. I've always felt like pull one big lure, just pull one something big, loud, annoying in there, because even the small blue marlin will be attracted to that. Blue marlin, they like that big, loud stuff. They like it. They like it. The reason a lot of people don't pull it and put hooks in it and stuff, you don't hear people catching fish on some of these like really big lures, is because a lot of times you'll pull hook because it's so heavy, and also the way they eat it, they'll bill it a lot of times. And so, you know, but those lures will raise fish. So, a lot to think about there. But anyways, that's why, you know, you really want to be doing, you know, your research on what lures you want to buy and what you want to put in your spread. And there's a lot more to just grabbing a couple lures because of their color or something and throwing them out there. A lot to do with the shapes, a lot to do with how they're going to act, what leader you're using. I mean, it goes on and on and on. You really go down a rabbit hole there. But that's why we're here to help you with it. So feel free to ask questions, shoot messages. Like I said, GZ is about getting you guys on fish. We're about hooking you up and making your fishing become better. So that's my spiel on lures. I hope that you liked it. I hope it helped you. And we appreciate the support and look forward to you putting in some orders with us. All right.